Okay, Miss Tasi funda ngamalwimi amabini ngeelanguages eziyi-2. We are finding new ways to learn and we find it easy to learn.
If kukhona igama le-English, obviously khona nelesiXhosa.
Kwi-maths nesayensi nyani bekuthiwa uba bakhona amagama afike ephumbe stick enzima nyani, but if wayicaciselwa ngesiXhosa soze ungayibambi.
Asikwazi ukufunda nge-English. English iyasixakamisa.
Abanye abantu bafeyliswa yile nba bengayi-understanding question because of ibhalwe nge-English.
Abanye abantwana baye bacinga ubana zizilolena kanti abazazilolena baxakwa yi-English.
I-English nayo ibalulekile, funeka sikwazi ucommunicate nabanye abantu abangabaXhosa, but ayikhombi into yoba isiXhosa sisifunda because isiXhosa ekugqibeleni language yethu. And xa sizojonga ilanguage yethu phantsi irongo loo nto.
Hi Carol, hi Kathy, Njani. Many African language speaking learners in schools learn through the medium of the home language from grade 1 to grade 3. And then when they switch to grade 4, all the subjects have to be taught in English. That is the grade where we experience most problems because the children are not proficient enough in English to learn through it. And so the learners are sitting there listening to a teacher speaking a foreign language to them, and they are expected to function as home language speakers of English.
Do you think that middle-class English-speaking parents would accept their children who've come to school with their 6 years of English by the time they get to grade 1, learning, say, isiZulu for 2 to 3 hours in grade 1 and 2, and in grade 3 for 3 to 4 hours, and then in grade 4 having everything in isiZulu, every single textbook, every single assessment, expected to write only in isiZulu, to speak only in isiZulu, and the teacher only addressing them in isiZulu? I'm sure there would be an uproar.
Basingajonga kwakhona phaya kwi-policy lena sinayo e-national iyayiqaphela into yoba zikhona ezingxaki bezikhona in the past kwixesha elidlulileyo elibangele ukuba ezinye iilwimi zibe ziyadobelelwa zezinye iilwimi. Ngoku ke urhulumente makenze kangangoko uqinisekisa ukuba ezi lwimi zinikwa ifuthe nazo, ziyancediswa ekukhuleni, kwaye ukuziqaphela oku i-recognition yazo nayo iyenzeka.
Really, it's the legacy of colonialism and of apartheid, where what was associated with whiteness was valorized, while everything that was associated with African languages, with being African, was devalued.
Schools generally get one allocated textbook per subject. When faced with the choice between an English textbook and an African language textbook, schools tend to prefer the English monolingual textbook, but the grade 4 learners, for example in science, can't read that textbook independently. They need a lot of help to unpack it from the teacher. But the African language textbooks are not popular with the schools because of the ideological challenges that we've had.
That is why most of the learners are very problematic. Some of them, they disturb in the classroom because they are frustrated. They are just sitting there, they don't understand anything. Language is a barrier, and it has affected many people in the past. Some people ended up dropping out of school because of the language they don't understand. So if you're asking a grade 4 learner a question in English, the child's mind will have to translate that first into their mother tongue. And then they have to translate it back to English. So I think now if they hear something that is asked in isiXhosa, so it makes their lives easy.
The problems that we experience then are that the learners are not learning. They are warming seats every day. They are memorizing if they are learning in English, but they can't engage in the classroom. They find it hard to participate, and creativity is stifled in the classrooms where children cannot express themselves. Because of the problem of excluding learners' languages, meaning African languages in education, we've implemented 2 bilingual education projects. iScience Yethu, Our Science, in a primary school, and Languaging for Learning project in secondary schools.
In these kind of contexts, many teachers would code switch or use the learner's home language as a resource for learning, but they would do that surreptitiously, secretly. A teacher talked about smuggling the vernacular into the classroom.
When my HOD was there, I would like teach him English the whole lesson. But when he's not there, I would code switch and only switch to their language when I see that now the room is just tense, there's no learning happening.
We do it privately. We were still in this. By the time you give us this chance, then you give us the opportunity to do it freely. This line, we call it y is equal to x. Xa line y is equal to x is a mathematical language ethetha the line ethini diagonal. Banoza sichazele siXhosa siyibeka njani? Lo horizontal nango. Ocatheni ocambaleleyo.
And so what we wanted to do with the Languaging for Learning project was to build on teachers' existing bilingual languaging skills and to develop these into a coherent, legitimated, translanguaging, multilingual pedagogy.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to give you the questions, 5 pages, each person. And also I'm going to distribute the dictionaries. A1, is B3. City and dictionaries 1, 2, 3 tables. Looking for the keywords in home language. Some are underlining. Then you will draw the table and translate the words to home language.
Traditionally, we've had a lot of monolingual English curriculum-aligned materials. And slowly but surely, the DBE has started to commission African language materials as well as they look to roll out mother tongue-based bilingual education up to the end of primary school. But we haven't had any bilingual resources that are curriculum-aligned. So we decided to have a go and a team of writers created Isaansi Yetu, the booklet that we created during 2022. And it was really a response to the lack of bilingual learning materials that are around for our children from grade 4 and beyond.
At the beginning, I remember when we brought the booklets to school, they were all shocked. They were asking themselves, oh, is science ngeXhosa? And they didn't read through the material to see that this is not only isiXhosa, it was both isiXhosa and English mixed together and representing the way they teach the subject in a class. But they, at the beginning, continued to challenge us, saying, this won't work. But at some point, I remember asking themselves, aren't you teaching a subject in both languages? What is different from what you have at hand with what you enact in a classroom? And then they started realizing that, oh, no, let's just give it a chance.
There are different kinds of bilingual education. I promote the kind of bilingual education that uses both languages simultaneously as means for teaching and learning. As a teacher, that means that I can explain concepts in 2 languages, and sometimes I can start teaching in another language, but the activity can be in another language. That is called translanguaging.
What we did in the materials was that we tried out a number of different strategies to show bilingual text. So in some parts of the materials, there is an isiXhosa paragraph followed by an English paragraph, and the same content is presented in both languages. But then we have other parts of the booklet where the bilingualism is much more fluid. So the register or the language in which the text is written moves from English to isiXhosa quite fluidly, and it tries to echo the way that teachers and learners work orally in the classroom.
It allows the children to draw on their linguistic resources. They have these languages, but they might not be at an equal level.
So we're wanting to model a situation where teachers can draw on all the resources in the classroom, even in a text that is bilingual in English and isiXhosa. They can go beyond that.
The red side up, so then now 30 voltmeter ane thathani lento niconnectele side sifuna uyijonga kutheni ngalight niyabona kwenzeka nto. That's why it was not light ane yeah okay mayime still please niyabona yeah.
Abantwana bethu into ibabetha kakhulu esababethayo kuzi expressa efumanisa uba ngezinye imini bayayazi impendulo ne, but they can't express themselves ngendlela abafuna ngayo. So le project ibanceda kakhulu uba umntana le nto ayicingayo ayibhale ngolu hlobo ayicinga ngalo.
In South Africa, we register few learners in grade 12 who are doing sciences. And with the bilingual teaching, we will definitely increase the number of learners who are now going to be doing maths and science in the country.
Before we get ourselves in this program, I have myself an attitude saying that how are we going to do this, because we don't have that much vocab for our content subjects. But as we are involving ourselves in this program, I saw it was possible. First of all, you teach the learners with some knowledge they know. Then here and there, we consult the dictionaries, we consult the textbooks, and then we allow them to express themselves in Xhosa, and then anyone who is able to translate that in English, they do so. And I can see now they are improving, all of them. They are able to take a question from English to Xhosa and from Xhosa to English.
The children that were more fluent in English were always that I thought of as the brightest in class, were clever ones. But when I started allowing them to discuss, and sometimes I would say you can respond in English and then you can ask someone to translate what you're saying in class, everybody was more keen to participate in class. So that was fascinating for me, because it's exactly what you were saying. They're using both languages as resources.
It was not easy at the beginning because I'm not a fluent speaker of isiXhosa. So in my class I was using English only. Now that they are free to answer using their home language and also present using their home language, the learner knows that science is not only in English, but science can be done also in my language. Even me as a teacher, I'm learning.
Natural sciences is a concept kwa grade 4 the English, of which would difficult abantwana ukuzigraspa because beqhele ilanguage yesiXhosa foundation fee. So sesavula kakhulu because abantwana bayakwazi ukuexpressa bathethe bakwazi uphendula eklasini.
Important results I think that we noticed was, first of all, the teacher spoke about the participation levels increased in the classroom because learners felt confident to use any language to express themselves. They didn't have to provide a perfect English answer every time.
They are willing to go to the board, they are willing to answer, sometimes they are competing. There are many posters that they've done by themselves. They are more and more active. They enjoy working alone as a group more than me telling them what to do.
This project, this initiative is one big breakthrough in the history of teaching. So I support it because I also can see the results. For the first time, you can see the kids can express themselves in their mother tongue.
We managed to get one focus class to write a bilingual test, English and isiXhosa, and the other classes wrote the traditional English-only test. And those learners who wrote the bilingual test outperformed the monolingual English learners by a big margin. We had an 81% pass rate in the bilingual test and a 51% pass rate in the monolingual English test.
That was so mind-blowing for me when I saw the learners performing with high marks, because now they can write either in isiXhosa or in English versus the learners who were writing only in English and didn't do well at all. I think we need to give the platform to our learners to become the leaders of science by teaching them in their mother tongue.
So often teachers are blamed for whatever the ills in education. But we've just been so impressed and moved by the way teachers have committed themselves, solved problems, gone the extra mile, despite the very challenging circumstances they work under.
Teaching learners that their home language or their own languages can be valued among other languages, that there is no other language that is superior to the other. So that gives them the confidence to participate and then see and value themselves as equally as the other languages.
These learners, they see that they are valued even if they speak Xhosa. So they are taken serious as intellectual beings.
I do think that we are seeing a change now, and that's what's really exciting. If we look at the student movements, roads must fall, fees must fall, the calls for free decolonized education, people are understanding and embracing what is African and realizing that actually what we have with only Western European languages and Western education is not actually rich enough and complex enough for us to solve the problems of our world.
Kukho abantwana who struggle ufunda ngeXhosa, then kubekho abastruggle ufunda ngeEnglish. But to me, I would think it's important to learn both languages.
As sifunda sithatha amagama from English so as isiXhosa, then sibhale iposter, then sipresent front, then sibhale ba sifunde ntoni ngalo magama.
Ii-materials zakwaZenex sinceda kakhulu, especially dictionaries, because akhona amanye amagama kwi-English esinocinga uba anzima kakhulu, but xa si-translate to isiXhosa siyabona okay la magama lilula eli gama, but i-English le isibhida kakhulu.
Into endingayi-advise uba bengenziwa kwezinye izikolo uba like abantu banga-basic education ba-produce more dictionaries benzela uba zonke izikolo benazi-dictionaries zesiXhosa neze-English.
Asikho bade kakhulu kwi-English, so isiXhosa siyasazi sisithetha emakhaya esitratweni and ilanguage esiyisebenzisa 100% xa sisemakhaya. So ke ngoku iyasinceda ke ngoku kuba xa sisebenzisa zombini iyasibhalansisa, sithi uba sizoyiyeka i-English yaqha senze ibalance.
There are many things that need to be in place, but I believe that we have to start with our mindset. At the moment, our mindset is oriented monolingually. We think monolingually. South Africa is a multilingual country in a multilingual continent. So we have to start orienting our minds towards a multilingual orientation where we base our teaching from a multilingual perspective.
What teachers really need is the go-ahead. Use language as a resource in whatever way you want, and to have that ban on the learner's home language lifted. Let's work multilingually. Let's empower the learners. Let's empower the teachers. I mean, after all, learning through a language you understand is surely a human right.